Okay, so because I have said that I'd like you to now revise urbanisation, I just kind of felt that because we did that back in second year, it would be really important for me to kind of give you a quick revision video on it, whereas the physical geography is relatively new to us, we've been doing it all along. So I won't do this for everything, but just I thought it was important for urbanisation. So one of the big questions that could be asked is, write about the functional zones in a city you've studied. Before we look at the city we've studied, let's just look at the different zones that we have in a city. So the first zone in the city is the CBD, the Central Business District. You'll remember that. Every city has a CBD. It's the business and shopping. That's what happens in the CBD. Get those two keywords into your mind, business and shopping. Okay, think offices and shops. The CBD is where banks, large department stores and company headquarters are found. So think business and shopping. So your businesses, your offices, your shops, your bank headquarters. The land is very expensive in there because it's in demand. So they're trying to make the best use out of the space. So they build high-rise buildings. Okay. So Dublin CBD is quite built up. The central bank is located in there. The Brown Thomas and Pennies and all of them are located in there. Arnott's, Google's headquarters are in the CBD in Dublin. Very, very important. Second zone is small shopping areas. If you're living in Dublin City, but you're living on the outskirts, or even anywhere in Dublin City, you don't want to be travelling into the city centre every day to do your shopping, your smaller shopping, your grocery shopping even. So, or even going to the laundry. So, like smaller residential districts where you live, go and do your shopping there. So, for example, Blackrock in Dublin, that was once a village, but it's been swallowed up by Dublin City. So it's part of the city now, but the residents of Blackrock would shop there. It's like Blackpool up in Cork. They'd shop locally for the smaller bits that they need. Okay, zone 3 is large shopping centres. They're usually located on the suburbs and the outskirts of the cities because there's room out there. There's big space. They've good access by car. You avoid traffic. So it's kind of taken a lot of the shoppers out of the city centre and causing closures in the city centre stores, unfortunately. Zone 4 is industrial areas. It depends on the type of industry. If it's a heavy industry, they'll locate by the ports and cities. Or they might locate as well if they're a heavy industry by railway lines or canals. If it's a modern light industry, they'll locate by industrial estates. We've a load of them by the M50 in Dublin. So they'll typically be on the outskirts of the city to get use of the motorways, the excellent transport, access to the ring roads, access to airports and avoid traffic. The land is cheaper as well for industrial estates to locate on the outskirts of cities. So it's cheaper in the outskirts of cities. It's dearer in the centre because it's in demand there. And also if your workers are living in the suburbs, they have quick access to work in the industries. Anything else there that was important? Another zone is residential areas. So there's people living in all parts of the city. The very, very old houses are in the city centre. As you move out, you get semi-detached houses and then you find detached houses. Zone 6, open space for recreation. There's some parks inside in city centres. That's important to have a green space for the population. Phoenix Park is one example, Stephen's Green. So your case study that we need to make sure we're okay with is Paris. We need to know about the different functional zones of Paris and you'll be asked to write about a few of them. So it's the capital of France, it's a primate city, okay? Its population is over 12 million. It's a world city, it's got a huge influence, fashion and culture, it's a big city. What are its zones? Okay, first zone is the CBD, Central Business District. It's a hive of activity with business and shopping. So load of business and shopping inside in the CBD of Paris. So they've got even tourism inside there, the Eiffel Tower, they've got shops, they've got the headquarters of banking companies, they've got the stock exchange, the Paris Bourse, they have got the government offices, the presidential palace, the Dáil basically equivalent is located in there. Now, because they have so much business and shopping inside in the city of Paris, they need to have a good transport network, so they have a really good metro system to allow all these people to move around and to access the CBD because it's a pretty big CBD. It now even reaches out as far as La Défense, which was recently done up as a new high-rise office district. Okay, second zone in Paris is shopping within the CBD because it's such a big thing we can't not talk about it in more detail. So what shopping is there on offer for the people? Loads of shopping areas. So you've got big department stores, Galeries Lafayette, you've got Printemps. What else have you? The Champs-Élysées lined with shops on either side. You have got Boulevard Haussmann is lined with shops as well. Smaller shopping areas, similar to Blackrock or Blackpool up in Cork. Any residents in the smaller zones in the outskirts of the city will shop in their own local areas. So any villages swallowed up by the city, anyone in the suburbs of Paris, shop locally there. Okay, so they'll shop in the local supermarket chains like Carrefour. Residential areas, If you're living in the city centre, you're going to be living in 10-storey apartment blocks, okay? A lot of apartment building, a lot of apartment living, because it's such a high built-up city. It's such a highly populated city, I should say, that housing is in shortage and space is in shortage as well, so they have to live in apartment blocks. If you're very wealthy, you've got a concierge, a doorman on your apartment block. A lot of Parisians do live in the outskirts and satellite towns because it's cheaper and you can commute in, okay? These new towns that they have set up have very good amenities, parks, leisure areas, plenty of housing, loads of shops, etc. for the people. Even Disneyland Resort is in a new town called Marne-la-Vallée. Okay, hope that helps. Another functional zone in Paris is industrial areas. So they have a lot of industries. The fashion industry has to be located by the banks of the River Seine because it's textiles. They have to ship in and out products. Jewellery and perfume are also located in the city centre. They're light products. They're easy to transport. Printing and publishing will be found near the universities because they get new graduates out of there, new journalists, etc. Modern industries are located in technology parks in the outskirts of the cities. Examples would be the aerospace industry, defence, optical equipment. If you can remember one example, brilliant. Their car industries were very popular years ago, but I suppose a lot of them have kind of shut and relocated to cheaper Eastern European locations, causing lots of job losses. Open spaces, loads of parks. Okay, loads of parks so there are people to get out. The Bois de Boulogne, remember me saying that last year, that was very popular with the locals, very centre of the city. Jardin de Luxembourg, the Luxembourg Gardens, very popular. The Champ de Mars at the back of the Eiffel Tower is another park for the people. You can stroll along the River Seine. There's absolutely loads of open spaces for people. So I hope you're okay now with the Paris and its functional zones. Okay, moving on from that, land values and land use. So I suppose the land is going to be most expensive and most high in the city centre because it's in demand, so you're going to pay a fortune for the land there. As you move out, it's going to get cheaper. Every shop and every business and every office company wants to have space in the city centre, so the price of the land goes up. Okay, so many shops are located in the city centre, boutiques, jewellers, entertainment, retailers, mobile phone shops, etc. Okay, because they want to be where the customer is. Cinemas, banks and hotels also will locate in the city centre. Now, the solution to limited supply of land. If you were really limited with shortage of supply in the land in the city centre, build multi-storey buildings, something which we're not great at in Irish cities, but we should really, really look at that to create more space. As you move out of the CBD into the suburbs, there's less demand for land. Land is cheaper, okay, and there's more of it available. So the land value drops, the price of the land drops as you move out of the city centre. The height of the building drops as well because you have more space, you have more parks, you have more fields, you have more housing estates because there's room for them. More shopping centres, petrol stations, hotels locate there because it's easily accessible for people. As regards the type of accommodation, age of it anyway, they're oldest of the housing in the cities in Ireland, I suppose in any city, it's in the city centre. So the oldest old houses are found in the city centre. As you move out to the suburbs, the houses are more newer and modern and bigger. Types of residential accommodation. So what different types of accommodation have you in the cities? Council apartment blocks, okay, 4 to 5 stories high population density. You've got terraced housing for the real old inner city housing. No front yard, no backyard, you literally open right out into the footpath. You've got expensive townhouses for those that are wealthy enough. You've got the high earners who may work in the CBD but live out in their townhouses. Large housing estates then where the majority of people are living out in the suburbs. Okay. Quality of them, home size, very small in the city centre, 2 up, 2 down is what they were called, those terraced housing, literally 2 rooms upstairs, 2 rooms downstairs, toilet in the backyard. Many of them have been modernised and done up. Out in the suburbs, you've got 3 to 4 bedroom houses, front garden, back garden. Insulation has become important in recent years because it keeps the house warmer. We've put in triple glazed windows, attic insulation, wall insulation, efficient gas and oil boilers. Okay, so we're getting better with building the size of our houses and building them a better quality. Commuting wise, we have a lot of commuting in and out of our cities every day. We have a lot of traffic congestion, okay, in and out of the CBD. Rush hour is 9 o'clock in the morning, schools and shop workers and office workers going into the CBD, and again in the evening time when they're returning home. So that creates a lot of traffic problems. So how do we solve it? Restrict the car use. How do you restrict the car use? Try to discourage them from coming in. So expensive car parking charges, that would turn you off going into the city centre. They clamp if you park illegally. That's expensive. Heavy on the spot fines for parking on a double yellow line, we'll say. That discourages people from parking in the city centre. Making the streets pedestrian only, bringing in less cars. Having a congestion charge. So for example, in London, during the hours of 7 and 6 in the day, if you go into the City of London and you pass that zone, you have to pay the congestion charge. So that's extra money then on you. That's discouraging people then from coming into the city. A second thing you could do to solve the traffic problem is traffic management. How to improve the flow of traffic. One-way streets. If they're too narrow, it should only be one way. Have traffic lights, ease the flow of traffic. Roundabouts, everybody gets their turn. Yellow box junctions, yellow grids at the junctions, means no one's blocking it. So if you need to pull out of a cross, it allows for ease flow of traffic. Double yellow lines to prevent anyone blocking a street. Effective in banning parking on busy routes. Ring roads, keep heavy traffic out of the city, and anyone that doesn't need to be in the city won't be in there if they go on the ring road. Tunnels, Dublin Port Tunnel, ideal. They take traffic from the surface underground. Park and ride facilities, leave your car in the suburbs, you'll go in by bus. The Lewis, trams, metros, okay? So the third thing that you could do then is just improve the amount of public transport. So take a bus, rail, rent a bike, have more bus corridors, taxi lanes, use the DART, the Lewis. Basically, there's just, so you restrict the car use, ease the flow of traffic, and have more public transport to discourage people from driving in. Okay, so I'll just do another few slides now and I'll leave it at that. So urban problems, what problems have we got in cities? Urban decline. If our city is going into decline, it's looking run down, it's getting run down, and it's looking dishevelled looking. So that's usually the inner city. So the housing is bad quality, a lot of old council blocks, council apartments. So some buildings are derelict, abandoned, boarded up, and then they might do them up, okay? Unemployment is a big problem in the inner city for years actually, because the factories that used to be located in the inner city moved to the outskirts, they shut, and people lost their jobs, and then they couldn't commute in and out. If you do want to get a job in the city centre, it's a lot of CBD office jobs, and they're highly skilled ones, so that eliminates some people then. So unemployment is a big problem. Some of them don't even finish education, so they leave school early and they have no qualifications, so they're unemployed. A lot of homelessness. Crime is a huge problem, and it's all down to the drugs. You see it in the news every day, drugs and murder. Okay, they've tried to set up community projects to improve it. Community disruption. Years ago in Dublin, they basically moved families out to the newer towns in the outskirts, but that moves them away from their families, so that loses a sense of community and they're feeling lost. Poor infrastructure. If you don't have good infrastructure, it's very hard for a city to work. So you need basically wider streets. Some of our streets in Ireland are too narrow, creates deadly traffic problems. Galway, Waterford, Dublin. We haven't enough bridge crossings, so huge traffic delays during rush hours at bridging points. We've only got the one Dublin Port Tunnel, Shannon Tunnel, and the Jack Lynch Tunnel in Cork. We need more tunnels. All of our traffic is on the surface level. That's serious traffic congestion. We've no metro. We need more buses, and we need more bus corridors and taxi lanes. Urban sprawl is a huge problem. Make sure you're okay with urban sprawl. It's when it's the uncontrollable spread of the city out into the country. So it's the spread of the city out into the countryside, and it keeps growing and growing and growing and taking up agricultural land. Okay, that's a big problem in Ireland, because Dublin is just spreading out further and further into the counties next to it. What's it spreading out with? Housing estates, shopping centres, industrial estates. Loads of disadvantages. It destroys wildlife, agriculture, huge commuter delays trying to get into the CBD. You could be an hour or two out, because the urban sprawl is so big that the city is just getting huge. Anything else? Urban improvements. I'll just finish with this one. What is urban renewal? Urban renewal is when you take an area in the city that's run down, in decline, you move the people out of their apartment blocks, out of their housing, you do it up, okay? You do it up and you temporarily locate them in another accommodation, and then when all their housing is done up, you move them back in. So they're delighted with that. No community disruption. Where that's urban renewal. Urban redevelopment is you move the people out from their accommodation, you rehouse them somewhere else, you demolish their homes, they're rehomed permanently somewhere else. You do up that new space, then once you've demolished their buildings, you build up offices, hotels, apartment blocks to replace the derelict buildings. Okay, so that changes the function of an area, and that does lead to community disruption. Okay, so I'll go on to the